Okay, so welcome back to BFF Fantasy Football. Today we're going to be going over three players who we think could or might be being drafted too high, or guys that we would just necessarily maybe just be cautious of them when you're drafting them.
Yeah,
And I'm
yeah.
joined. I have Adrian and Izhar with me today,
Hello.
and so we
Hello,
kind of came to a
everyone.
consensus on one quarterback, one running back, one wide receiver. If this video does well, we could start splitting it up into little groups. We could do like maybe five quarterbacks to be a little cautious of. Now we're not saying don't go out and don't draft these guys. Like as you can see, the first one's J.K. Dobbins. I know a lot of people are high on him, but we're saying just be cautious of these guys, and for and we have some reasons listed as to why.
Yeah, and kind of like how Andres was, making the point is that we're not saying don't draft these guys. We're just saying don't draft them as high as we think they're rated because you we believe that you get these type of players later on in the draft, and if they don't, that means players that should have gone higher are gonna go lower, and that's better for you.
Exactly.
Yeah, you can
So
get way better value where some of the draft capital is of these guys. You can get better value and better talent there than what these guys are giving right now.
So we can start the list off. We have J.K. Dobbins as the running back that you should maybe be cautious of. His draft capital right now. I mean, we just all feel like it's too high. I mean, he's a mid to late second round pick, and I mean that's because all the running backs get drafted in the beginning of the first round, and then right around that curve at the beginning of the second round. And people are panicking, and they reach for a running back. And I mean, I don't think any of us are sold on him being an RB1 this season.
Hmm.
Well, yeah, I mean he's not even the RB1 in Baltimore. I mean that's Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson's their like
Yeah,
main running back, honestly.
I mean, yeah, I mean, we have Lamar on the list for a reason. Like, or we have him as a point as to why to be cautious of him because Lamar runs the ball a lot,
Yeah,
and
he's gonna take all the touches, most of the touches at least.
J.K. Dobbins
What's
had
the
a solid
toughest?
season. I mean, it wasn't too bad, but like the spot he's being drafted in right now in redraft leagues, it's just too high. Like mid to late second round pick, you can get. There's so many wide receivers that are available at that spot that I just feel like can give you better options than J.K. Dobbins. Because Lamar, first of all, I mean, even if J.K. Dobbins gets the workload as the running back, he's not going to really be one of those guys that catch the ball to the backfield much. Because how often is Lamar going to be throwing him the ball?
And even then, I don't really believe J.K. Dobbins is much of a reliable pass catcher
Yeah,
the backfields as
yeah,
much either. He's a great runner. Don't get me wrong, but I also believe the Ravens, what they like to do, they like to using Gus Edwards every once in a while as
yeah.
well.
They like to rotate the running backs. I mean,
Yeah.
their number one option is going to be Lamar Jackson with QB reads and him just taking off from the
Hmm.
pocket. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, Lamar's a phenomenal talent, but that's just going to dip into J.K. Dobbins' stock a little bit, and that's why. I mean, if he's drafted around late third round, I don't think that's a bad spot for him. But like mid to late second round, like I feel like that's too high.
Yeah, he's the
I
type of player
wouldn't.
that you're gonna play in running back two or the flex position.
Exactly. And people are
Yeah, I
drafting
wouldn't
him to
take
be their
him there.
RB1.
Yeah, I wouldn't take him as an RB1 at all. I'd take him flex, like what Isaac was saying, flex, maybe RB2, but I wouldn't even take him second, third. I'd probably take him like sixth round or
Damn.
fifth round or something.
Damn,
Hmm.
Adrian's not
I
high on
agree.
him at all. All right. Well, so we move on to our second player. The second guy that we were trying to think about a wide receiver that we could put into the list, and I mean he just kind of fell into our laps, and it's just Juju Smith-Schuster.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I believe there's too much competition out there in Pittsburgh. Well, when it comes to receivers, and also Big Ben, I don't trust his arm anymore. Uh,
Yeah, I mean,
Juju's a great talent, and he's a great receiver, and I believe every team should have a Juju Smith. But when it comes to fantasy value, like he doesn't do too much,
yeah,
especially as a wide receiver one.
he's not
Not
a
at all.
guy that's being drafted too high because he burned a lot of people last year. But he's still a guy that people like. They don't see him really as their wide receiver one in fantasy. They see him as like their wide receiver two or like their
Wide
flex
receiver
play,
too.
and like that's
Mm-hmm.
fine. But he's like always like the number one receiver taken off the board for Pittsburgh. And I'm just more high on guy on like Chase Claypool, for example. I think not that I don't know if he's more. I mean, I feel like he's a little more talented than Juju because all that Juju's really shown us is he's just move the chains kind of guy. Like he'll get you a 3rd and 5, a 3rd and 8, and I mean he doesn't really make the big plays down the field anymore. Last year that was mainly reserved for Deontay Johnson and Chase Claypool.
April, yeah.
He was like their slot guy. He was, and he burned so many people in fantasy football last year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I mean Mapletron, as they call Chase Claypool, is
Yeah.
definitely way more talented, in my opinion, than Juju Smith-Schuster. He's got a bigger frame, and I think he's just an all-around bigger,
Yeah.
better receiver. And
He,
Juju, I feel like the Steelers are just going to rely more heavily on the run this season because Big Ben's older, and this might even be his last year. And his arm, I mean, he like the slide says, like we have no idea how his arm's going to be. We don't know if he'll be able to sling it all the way down until like December and stuff like that. Like Steelers might try to like make sure that his arm doesn't get worn out throughout the season, so they just
yeah.
rely on the run more heavily this year.
Yeah, and even passing it is Najee Harris even more so.
Yeah.
I believe Najee Harris way so much better, just not just running but also pass catching than James Conner was,
Oh
and
yeah, for
so
sure. He's a much better
so when
talented
it comes
pass
to
catcher.
even to the moving the chains type of guy now, it becomes a little bit of a question mark now that you have Najee Harris there.
Yeah, I mean, and we're not with saying Juju, we're not saying he's not going to get like 50, like he's not going to get anywhere near like 30 catches or something. Like obviously he
No,
will. He's
yeah,
he's been in Pittsburgh. He knows the offense. He knows Ben. Him and Ben have good chemistry together. But last year he showed us kind of what he molded into after Antonio Brown left that offense.
hmm,
He just
agreed.
kind of turned into the slot guy, and Deontay and Claypool, like I said earlier, they were their big play guys down the field. I mean, Deontay was getting all the targets. That was for a couple weeks there. That was insane. He was getting like 10
Hmm.
targets a game. Ben just loves throwing it to Deontay. I'm not sure why, but
Hmm.
Yeah,
yeah. And
agreed.
they drafted that tight end in the second round, the boy Baby Gronk. He could take some looks. It's
Hmm.
just a tough situation with Juju. I would have liked to see him fantasy value wise go to a different team, but for me being a Steelers fan, I'm glad he stayed because
I
he.
mean, I think it's fine where he stayed because if not, he would have gone to Baltimore, and I don't know if so much of his fantasy value would have actually
Well,
even
there's
gone
also
up either
reports
way.
of him maybe going to Kansas City, so that's not too bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we're gonna move on to our third guy. It might be a little controversial. We were kind of going back and forth on this and who we should have. So we decided on a quarterback that we think people are really high on that maybe you should be a little cautious about, and that is Matthew Stafford. So I mean, with Stafford, I mean, it's just inevitable that he always misses at least a couple games. Like I feel like the last 3 years he's always missed a couple games with injury, and it dates back to I mean, like one of his highlights in his career is him throwing a touchdown pass on a separated shoulder. I mean, um, he's in a new
Yeah, and
offense. Yeah, go ahead.
then yeah, new offense, everything, and also look at the defense he's playing against. Look at the pass rushers in that division.
Oh yeah,
Like having to play against the 49ers pass rush, even the Cardinals who revamped pass rush, it's nothing to joke around about.
and they're getting Chandler Jones
It's gonna be a
back.
lot harder. Yeah, exactly. And so it's gonna be tough for him in a new offense. I believe the Rams offensive line has kind of dwindled down over the past couple years.
Yeah, Andrew Whitworth's not
Obviously
the
not the
same.
same. Exactly. Yeah.
He's still a big name guy,
Uh,
and he's still a great tackle, but he's not like
no,
at
no.
his peak anymore.
He,
He's
he,
definitely on the backside of
he's
his
up there
career.
in age. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, we're not saying like don't draft Stafford at all because Stafford. I still think he'll have like he still has the potential to have like a really good season this year. Like we even had him, I think we had him in like our top 10 quarterbacks. We still think he'll have a good season, but just don't draft him too high. Like don't draft him over some other quarterbacks that are more reliable, more durable, that won't get hurt, and also that are already established on their team, so you practically know where you're going to get with those guys. But with Matthew Stafford, just be cautious about him because
Yeah, and
he will get he might miss some games this year. I'm not going to say he will because the Rams could take better care of him than Detroit did,
Agreed.
but just be
Yeah. It is
careful.
Detroit.
yeah,
Yeah.
and the wide receiver group. I mean, are they really more talented than what he had in Detroit with Kenny Galladay? Kenny Galladay is a great talent. I mean, no offense to Robert Woods or Cooper Kupp, but I mean those guys aren't guys that you're thinking about voting for the Pro Bowl every year.
I
Um,
mean, Brandon Cook. They used to have Brandon Cooks
yeah,
on the team too, and he was one of the top guys.
yeah,
Brandon Cooks has been different team almost every year.
yeah, exactly.
And
Stafford
yeah,
could
it
elevate
just
them. I mean, that'd be
yeah,
awesome. And I like Matthew Stafford being with the Rams. I think it'll make their team better, but for fantasy value, just be cautious because you never know really what it's going to be like when a new quarterback goes to a new offense. So
hmm
just take that into
yeah,
consideration. Like, will his play style transfer over to Sean McVay's offense? And Cam Akers, they have Cam Akers. I mean, he's a great, talented running back. Are they going to rely more on the run? Are they going to try and go 50-50? Because I feel like with Stafford, I mean, there was that stat where they hadn't had a 100-yard rusher in,
yeah.
in
The
seasons.
Detroit, yeah,
Detroit just hadn't had a
hmm
100, so they had to rely on Matthew Stafford to throw the ball all the time.
air it out. They're usually down either way, so
Yeah, and
air it out, air it out.
yeah, exactly. And so with having Cam Akers, and they have an okay offensive line. I don't think the Rams have a bad O line, but they are
No,
starting to slip a little bit, I would say, compared to the previous
yeah,
years. But with having Cam Akers in his second year, and he looks like he could be one of the top running backs in the league, fantasy points wise, like at least he could be top 10. So just keep that in mind with Matthew Stafford, just because he's got such a talent in the backfield that they're going to want to use him. And we saw last year how Sean McVay was kind of leaning more on the run. But that could also be because Jared Goff was pretty trash.
Yeah, he just
yeah.
didn't trust Goff last year, but he'll definitely trust Stafford more. We're just saying, if you can get a Dak Prescott or an Aaron Rodgers or something like that, don't get Matthew
Yeah,
Stafford over those guys, or Justin Herbert, just
I mean,
guys like
even Matt
that.
Ryan.
Yeah, and even a Matt
Even a
Ryan.
Matt
Yeah,
Ryan. Yeah,
just
Matt Ryan's
don't
got
get
such talent around him. It's insane.
just don't get Matthew Stafford over those guys. Just what we're just trying to say.
Just be cautious
Yeah,
with him. I mean, if he's your quarterback two on your bench, I mean, that's perfect. I think that'd be great.
great pickup.
Just in a lot of the
Mhm.
redraft leagues that we've seen, a lot of people have him as their starting quarterback, and I would just be worried because you don't know what you're going to get, especially because he's in a new offense.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. I mean that does it from us. That's the three players I think that we have to be just a little cautious of when going into your redraft leagues. Anything else you guys want to say?
Um,
No, just like and subscribe and share the video to your friends so we can keep pumping out more good fantasy content for you guys.
Yeah, we'll have fantasy content throughout the year, all throughout the off season as we get closer to draft days. We'll be uploading plenty more vids, and if this one does really good, then we can have like an actual breakdown on each position instead of just one player per just our top three guys.
yeah.
All right, well that does it from us here at BFF Fantasy Football.